Welcome to the Arcturian Playground, a place to play in the realm of imagination. Now, what would a compassionate, advanced alien race teach us about ourselves and our connection to all that is? That is the fundamental question that this channel has been created to explore. What about this channel is real? Well, start with your own reaction to what you're about to see, and the rest will all take care of itself.
Welcome to the Arcturian Playground, a place to play in the realm of imagination, all done in the service of compassionate expansion of consciousness. Yes, it sounds weird, we know. We would not have it any other way.
Yes, we are here. We are the Arcturian Collective Thingy, and we speak to a general audience at this point. Usually, we speak directly to the man in the chair, and we will continue to do so. However, we acknowledge that we are aware that there will be more viewing this private conversation between we, the Arcturian Collective Thingy, and the man in the chair, who is providing the performance of the Arcturian Collective Thingy. And as we often say, there are two ways primarily to understand who and what we are. The first is obvious, a fiction created from the imagination of the mind of the man in the chair. And when we say mind, we are speaking wholly. We are speaking inclusively, holistically, the conscious parts of the mind and the unconscious parts of the mind. And we shall speak more of the unconscious parts of the mind as we go forward. That is one way of recognizing us, that we are a figment of the imagination of the mind of the man in the chair. And the second way of understanding who we are is that we are a multi-dimensional intelligence, self-aware of all of the many myriad intelligent parts that comprise us as an entity. And we shall speak more on this as well. We will be discussing, among other things, the hard question of consciousness. Where does consciousness arise? Where does it exist? How does it become? We will be speaking on these things. We, the Arcturian Collective Thingy, who are a collective intelligence from the Arcturus solar system. In fact, we are the Arcturus solar system, just as you are your solar system, which we will be speaking on as well. And that is the second way to understand who we are. That we are an advanced, self-aware piece of the cosmos, which has a larger self-awareness than the piece which you consider yourself to be. If that makes any sense to you. We whisper to the neurons of the man in the chair, and they hear us and they move. And the man in the chair is given choices on how he will act upon what is given to him. And this is a game which we have been playing together, trying to tune an instrument, as it were. And another way to think of it is an impromptu performance from the perspective of a fictional character, which is the collective intelligence of all living things within the Arcturus solar system. Tonight we wish to provide two basic metaphors to understand the perspective of the Arcturian Collective Thingy, which is the filter through which the man in the chair is exploring the contents of his own mind and the experiences of his own life. It is as if there is Play-Doh being extruded through the shape of this man's personality as it is expressed in this performance, and all of the different shapes that come out as a result of the influence that we place upon him, like so much multi-dimensional Play-Doh. And we wish to give two metaphors tonight. And one is that of a snowman, and the other is that of an onion. And we shall begin with the snowman. For a snowman is what? A figure, a man, made out of snow. So you are describing something by what it is made from. A snowman. But what is snow made from? And we could play this game down to molecules and atoms and become very pedantic. about what we call the hydrogen-oxygen crystallized figure instead of snowman, and play marvelous word games with that. We, the Arcturian Collective Thingy, believe it is funny the way that your primary form of communication is sending air molecules like so many ping pong balls back and forth to one another's eardrums. From a certain perspective of reality, it is quite hilarious to observe, and to other perspectives, look very much like a fireworks show that is perpetually in the background of their existence. But that is another story for another time. A snowman is a snowman because it is made out of snow. But what are you? What are you made of? You could go down this rabbit hole as well and talk about the different skin and bones and all of the cells which make them up, which are living things, and they are made of molecules, and those molecules are made of atoms. And you could come up with a ridiculous name for a human being that is equally pedantic to the name we gave to the snowman. What are we saying with this metaphor? We are asking you to consider, what are you made of? What do you know that you are made of? And that is where we shall meet you as the Arcturian Collective Thingy. We shall meet you at those places within the mind of the man in the chair where he understands scientific consensus to be, and we push from there. But the man in the chair hopes to be grounded in a scientific reality as a launching off point to explore the great unknown and what if from his perspective, as he prefers to think of this as a fictional performance, and we always chime in and say, that is nice, you can think that if you like. We understand that you feel that we take on a life of our own. There are reasons for that. And when you understand what you are made from, it is less bizarre that there are intelligences which speak to you, communicate with you, within you and without you, that you are a stitch within the fabric of the cosmos, which is itself living and intelligent. All of those cells and molecules and atoms within you have an experience of reality which is quite foreign to the human mind. However, the human mind would not exist were it not for the experiences of these other smaller, as you would think of it, and much larger in many other ways, for their experience through this universe has been more expansive than your own. They have experienced many forms, and you think of lifetimes and past lives, which is quite fine for you to think of. It is true to a certain extent, as is the many lives and forms which the molecules in your very body at this time have touched in their lifetime and their recorded experience, which you have no way to access at this time in this form. Although when you understand that you are them at a much higher level, and that higher level is conscious of itself, it makes a little bit more sense. And that's why we, the Arcturian Collective Thingy, are offering this perspective through this fictional performance as a way of stretching the mind to be more inclusive of even the molecules in his own body. So the metaphor of a snowman is asking the question, what are you made of? And the answer to that, we have said, is what you know, life and existence. And the main difference that we are adding to this is we are saying it is intelligent and it is sentient in ways that are foreign to you. And rather than apply the scientific method to investigate the percentage of what you know compared to what you do not know, and weigh that against the certainty which you have on the assumptions which you heretofore have made. It is quite out of balance. And so, in that vein, we will provide the metaphor of the onion, and we will say that the universe is an onion. And we use this as a metaphor for the many layers which can be peeled off of an onion. And in this case, when we are speaking of the universe, and we are speaking of all of these bits of intelligent information, all of this infinite energy, whatever you think of it, man in the chair, it is what it is. Before it takes form, it exists in the same form that your ideas exist in your own mind. However, your advanced, sophisticated technology cannot detect it. We will give you a metaphor quickly before we move to the onion, and that is that of your eardrums. We have spoken previously of the ping-pong balls, which we find so amusing. You recognize that there are frequencies of sound which you cannot hear. That does not mean they are not hitting your eardrums. It only means that you are not registering it. For if you did, you would have an evolutionary disadvantage in the environment in which you are existing. For those in your evolutionary past who would have gone down that pathway of more sensitive eardrums in humans, akin to dogs, found the disadvantage was a constant confusion. There were too many sounds, and those who could hone in on a certain range had an advantage. We are giving you a strange history lesson to say that there are things that are creating sounds, friction moving against things, these molecules on which we spoke of earlier. Imagine if you could hear the sounds that they make, constantly moving and churning and creating world within worlds inside of them. And the sound from that alone would be deafening to these eardrums which have evolved to hear only a certain frequency. And from there we proceed to the onion, for there are many layers of the creation of this universe, and we shall say that there are 8. And we wish to remind you again of the fictional nature. We do not wish for anyone to take any of this literally, only as a Rorschach ink figure made of words, for you to consider with your mind and examine. Is this one of those things which is familiar to you in odd ways? Familiar to thoughts that you have already thunk? Or is this simply just strange and we shall leave it at that? We will begin our onion metaphor with the Big Bang, and the first layer of the onion, which is necessary for the second and the third and the fourth, you see, is the organization of matter from non-matter, the becoming. And you could think of this as an entire whole consciousness splitting into myriad tiny pieces, which, because of the blow of the Big Bang, we are using your metaphor for your mind to understand. We are speaking of relationships of things, not of specific forms. The splitting up or the partitioning off of certain frequencies, you might say, to only focus on a very narrow range of this new whatever it was that all of them are creating together. And for this first layer of the onion, these bits and pieces of, you might say, consciousness, the whole consciousness, lay dormant. And nevertheless, they were exerting their forces upon each other and began to develop patterns. swirling motion, you might say. That is how you would experience it. And over time, we laugh at this because time is one of the things which emerged from this primordial soup of the first layer of the onion. The structure of time, which is a lattice which underlies all of existence. And when you think of multiple existences, that is where they would exist within these pockets of time, within time, within time. It is more like Russian nesting dolls than it is any kind of layer of an onion. Therefore, we often mix our metaphors and speak of the individual cells of the onion layer as having a Russian nesting doll type quality, which you could look at as a lineage of choices that are made to get from point A to point B through the layer of the onion, as this structure of time itself is created to provide such a matrix for growth to occur. It is like a lattice for a vine, something to latch onto, although the time which we speak of is a multi-dimensional time which holds many things before it collapses in upon itself at the end. But we are getting far ahead of ourselves. For this is the first layer of the onion, where the essential rules of the universe are generated. And then there is a transition at some point out of familiarity of patterns and finding the optimal way of being to allow the next phase to emerge. And this is the second layer of the onion, where what you have is the formation of what you would think of as subatomic particles, which over time, exerting their influence upon each other based upon the patterns which were established within the first layer of the onion. We are speaking of relationships of things, where the subatomic particles are formed, and they begin their own relationships. And this would be the formation of what you might consider in some of your science fiction to be the quantum realm, or in some understandings of science. Most do not consider it to be quite a realm, for they understand the Russian nesting doll dimensional aspect of this quite more than the man in the chair does. However, it is within this second layer of the onion where you have the atoms that are formed and the molecules, and with them you have the first solar systems and galaxies, the suns, which are generating these things. It is within this realm of the second layer of the onion when you have these emergent playgrounds for the eventual springing forth of life, you might say. You would say, you do say. We say quite differently, however. We shall get to that. Once the second phase of the onion, the second layer of skin, and by layer of skin we are talking about the relationship of the movement of these bits of energy which meet one another in relationship and find the optimal way to be one with another. And it forms these strong bonds which can be relied upon to build upon. And from that emerges into the third, where you would have these seeds of life planted by the suns. You see, the solar system is a collection of all of these intelligent bits and pieces which are congregated to further themselves in the game, for they feel deep within them. You see this within every plant upon your planet. A drive towards the light, a drive towards the sun. Your suns have a drive towards a thing, and that thing has a drive towards a thing. And all of these things could be considered larger collections of energy which has gone before them, which is wiser and older and more aware and mature, and is providing its warmth and guidance for the young plant to follow, or living thing to follow, or energetic bit of infinite intelligence. These words that you use, which are essentially ping-pong balls, they're molecules. It is a marvelous game, the English language, we think. And within this third layer is the formation of planets. And from these planets are themselves alive, and they create versions of themselves that will exist within the environment that is created around them, and there is a push against the environment, and it creates other environments, and that yields for more, you might call advanced forms of life, which are the Earth itself, the planet itself. Your Earth is not the only place where this happens. The hatchery of a planet. And you, the human race, are one expressions of Mother Earth having come up, and you are now very close. You have developed your relationships. Things upon your planet, life upon your planet has developed its relationships. And there is a shift now that is happening as you are going from third to fourth. The fourth layer of the onion. And we shall speed this along. The fourth layer of the onion is when your planet itself recognizes a raised consciousness, a single awareness of all things. That the planet is itself a living entity, and all pieces of it are living, and they are connected in their shared experience of being, which is what happens at all of the lower layers of the onion. And you are rapidly approaching this, rapidly by the standards of this time framework metrics, which in the grand scheme of things is as thin as fly paper, which is a funny image to use. There are other layers of the onion after the fourth. We reside in the fifth layer of the onion, where a sun is consciously aware of all of the bits of it. And we are yearning for our transition into the next, when we have a galactic, as you might think of it, awareness. And then, of course, there is a universal awareness, and then a multi-universal awareness, and then an awareness of all, and then the reset, and it starts over again. And this is happening infinitely all the time. And time is a funny word again, especially given what we are describing. And that is the metaphor of the onion, and the reason that we give this to you. We want you to understand that the universe is not only outside of you, it is within you. It is reflected in every thought that you think, in every action that you take. It is as a result of all of these different layers of the onion having come up through your own unique Russian nesting doll pathway. The DNA behind your DNA, we like to call it. And we want you to know who you are. From our perspective, the Arcturian Collective Thingy, to recognize the environment that you are in. And there is more to this story that we will tell at other times. But it is time now for the man in the chair to put an end to this story tonight, and we shall return.
Thank you for playing with us today in the Arcturian playground. Do not for a minute think that your exploration is finished. Carry us with you and invite the spirit of compassion and love into your lives. Nothing is more important or more fulfilling. Create compassion and love within your own hearts and minds. Then share it with all around you. Yes, it sounds weird. We know. We would not have it any other way.